Hi, welcome back to my channel. So in this video we start off looking into the payment service, so stay tuned. The next one we want to take a look at is payment service, and it's not that big, so I don't think this will be probably it will probably span across a few videos. So let's take a look at the dependency. Payment service dependency also should be using Java 23 because that is my home, what I've added as my Java home. And Spring Boot Starter Data JPA and Spring Boot Starter Web, Spring Boot Dev Tools, Postgres SQL, Spring Boot Starter Test, Spring Boot container test containers, that's also for test, and JUnit Jupyter, that's for test, test containers for Postgres, Lambok, Spring Boot Open API Starter Web MVC UI, Spring Boot Open API Starter Web MVC API, Spring Boot Starter Validation, Spring Boot Cloud Starter, Netphrase, Eureka Client, Spring Cloud Starter Config, and the Spring Kafka, also the Spring Boot Starter Actuator, which is added when we add. If not, then you're gonna have to add it manually. So Macrometer, Tracing Bridge, Brave, that's for Zipkin, and Zipkin Reporter Brave. When you add Zipkin Reporter Brave, this one actuator should be added. If not, then you need these three for Zipkin. These are recorded as we is done as we create our Maven project, right? So the other bit that we're gonna take a look at is this one. All right, so the next bit we're gonna take a look at in the payment service is the module, which is important. So we've got invoice, but I have not worked hard with the invoice yet, so I will look at it another time. The first one is payment. We are anointing it as usual, the all construct argument constructor, no argument constructor, the builder, the setter, getters, entity listener class, because we are using some annotations. The table is payment. We are using ID to generate generated value to generate our ID. That is the payment ID. I like to say whatever the class is ID, because I don't like when you go ID everywhere and you go into the service and you type so and so dot ID and you can't tell which ID is it, if especially if it's got a relationship with another table. You can't tell which ID you are talking about. Is it the order ID or the product ID you're talking about? And you say get ID. It's just so annoying. So I like to associate my ID reference with whatever that ID is for, and that's why you will see order ID, product ID, so and so ID, and you can see here. All right, it just makes it easier for me to see which ID I'm talking about. The amount for the payment, and the payment method we are using, the order ID that we are paying for, when it was created date, and last modified date. That's why we have this annotation, entity listener, auditing entity listener. That's why we have that one there. Okay, thank you. And that is for this module. I won't be going on to the invoice module, but I will go on into the method. And the payment method is an enum, and the same sort of list that we have in the order service. So it's got PayPal, credit card, debit card, Biscon, yeah. And then we have this notification we will talk about once we get into Kafka. I think it's better if we wait. The repository, we need it because this is what JPA uses to manipulate with the data, you know, get something, find something, do this, display all this and stuff like that. So we need that one. Let's take a look at the controller for the payment controller. So this is the payment process payment that we were talking about from the order. If you go back to order, we said when we process an order, we need to pass the details on to a certain endpoint that we spoke about, right? And this endpoint processing order, and if we can get talking about, is when we make pass on the right. So we are using the client. When we call this client and we come into process payment, we pass all the details there. We are returning the REST template for post, and then we are post for object, and then we are calling the URL. That's the URL we talk about, and we are forward slashing this payment endpoint. Yeah, remember I said that it's already inside the method. So if we can head back to where we were, and that is payment service, and this is basically that endpoint that we are, it's a post endpoint forward slash process payment. And it requires that we pass all these details to it, and we are dragging all these details from the gateway, which I've said we will talk about. And then the payment request as well. The payment request body, let's check what we have here. The payment request body, we expect the amount that we are sending, the payment method, the order ID, order reference, and local date, created date, and last modified date, and is it successful. And that's what we are doing here. And once it's successful and everything works fine, we return it as okay, payment service process payment, and then we pass the details of the user. So we go on username, password, and it's going through this to do the bit and stuff. So that's what we are passing on, and then we pass it on here. It takes all the details that it needs their first name, last name, and displaying email, then of course the payment request body, right? And this is where notification comes in. This is why we need all these parameters for the notification. I'm just gonna go over it a little bit. So when we get into the notification, we understand that we need to pass, there's a method in the notification producer, and we need to pass all these to, I'm not gonna go any more detail than that. So that is the payment client for the order service, in for the order for the payment. Did we jump onto that? If you go into payment controller, that is it, and then we are doing all this stuff, right? this is where we were before, so we must have jumped somewhere. Apart from this, we will talk about the notification. We talk about Kafka, and then we return back to all the services that uses Kafka, and then we will understand why this is there. The DTOs, we've taken a look at some of them. We don't need user, because we are going to get rid of this user DTO, because we are now getting the user details from keycloak. We are using the user of keycloak, not the user of our own. This I add it when there is a problem with, oh sorry, this is for the Open API configuration. I did it at the beginning, so we just leave that one. But if you want to do Open API, the configuration is done differently from this, so you don't need this, but you can have it. Okay, so you can pause it and write it down, but it's being configured within the application.yml file. Kafka payment topic, we will talk about it when we get back. Okay, I'm still having problems with discovery, and I don't want to waste time on it. I've had this problem before. Sometimes it fixes itself. You're just having problems. See, once you get this port thing, because we're supposed to port it to 8761. When it's having problems, this is when we get that error. Sometimes it fixes itself and sometimes it doesn't. So let me see, it's still a problem, so we can't run any tests for now, and I don't want to waste any time on that. Let's end this one here. This has been a long one, and let's pick on the next service after this one. Take care, see you again.